I want to spend some time in this podcast thinking about what your baby might hear from you. We often use sound as a way to soothe our babies and ourselves. Babies show a preference for human voices over other sounds of a similar quality. This preference is partly due to their familiarity with our voices from the pregnancy period. And one of our jobs as parents is to discover the most pleasing pitch, volume and tones of sounds for our baby in order to either arouse their interest or to calm them down. So we know that individual differences play a part in this. Some babies are predisposed to sensitivity to sound, either naturally or as a part of their temperament or from their early experiences, for instance if they were born prematurely. From a few months old, infants attempt to influence or direct the attention of others through their sounds and movement. And vocalising is one of our primary ways of communicating with each other and of expressing both ourselves and our feelings. Vocalising is a way of sharing an experience or a point of view, and it creates opportunities for being with and understanding each other, so there's this togetherness. Parent-infant interaction using vocalisations promotes synchrony, like a dance, and there's evidence to show that when a newborn hears their mother's voice, they will synchronise their movements to her sounds. And in turn, she then responds by matching her vocalising to his movements, and so on. In this way, synchrony and turn-taking naturally occur. I think this is just amazing because most of this happens unconsciously. The turn-taking between you and your baby in pre-verbal communication is so important as it allows each of you to have your say and be heard, and this builds a sense of partnership in relationships. For your baby, his or her relationship to you is the first relationship they experience. So there's something about learning really early on that a give and take and sense of partnership can be a healthy and helpful foundation for relationships. And we know that these early experiences shape our babies' brains and in this way also shape their later experiences. So being mindful of following your baby's lead and imitating your baby's vocalisations will promote feelings of togetherness for you both. Many of you will have shared a time where your baby has made a sound and then you've imitated him when he pauses, and this might have been followed by maybe a giggle from him and then a repeat of the sound, to which you then imitated again, a bit like a game, or as we said before, this dance of synchrony. I'd like you to just take a moment now to reflect on what might be important in these exchanges for both you and for your baby. When imitating your baby, try to imitate both the sound quality in pitch, tone, and in volume. When you follow his lead like this, he feels heard and understood by you, which then fosters that closeness. When he makes a sound and then you make a sound, at some level he experiences that he made that happen. He created a situation where you responded. This experience gives him a sense that he can exert some influence over his environment. If he reaches out in some way by communicating, he's heard and he's responded to. Now, I want you to switch for a moment and just think of everyday normal conversations that you have with your partner or your friend or whoever that might be. And if we think about these conversations, we notice that they have pauses in them. Times when the two of you are just thinking about what to say next or thinking about what's just been said or how to respond to that last comment. Some people feel uncomfortable with pauses. These people prefer to keep the conversation flowing without too many breaks, and they're skilled at changing the topics quickly to keep things rolling along, or they fill in spaces with their own words because they're uncomfortable with a silence or a pause. And then there are some people who are okay with pauses, happy to fall into that natural rhythm of conversation with each other. Have a little bit of a think now about where you fit along this spectrum. Are you more of a chatterer, or are you someone who's more comfortable with those silences and pauses? Pauses are needed in our communication with babies because they have a shorter concentration span than adults. They often need little breaks from the conversation so they don't get overwhelmed. Constant stimulation is too much for them. Changing conversation or activity too quickly without a pause for them to gather themselves is too difficult for them, particularly when they're young. This can lead them to shut down or become overstimulated and really difficult to soothe. Slowing down and observing can help. I want you to try and notice how your baby lets you know when they might need a break. What sort of cues do they give you? So they might look away, express anger, or become fussy or grizzly, or they may cue you with another signal. I want you to really have a think and notice this with your baby over this week. It's your job at these times to just pause and wait until your baby is ready to begin that dance again with you. So during this week, I'd like you to really practice interacting with your baby this way, holding these things in mind and really taking time to notice how they cue you, how they let you know where they are in that dance. Another way to communicate verbally with your baby is to put words on what you observe of him. So this requires observation, reflection, and empathy. While observing your baby, you might reflect on their current state of mind and put words on their thoughts, feelings, desires, wishes, intentions, and actions. For instance, imagine you're sitting and playing with your baby and he points to a toy near you. You might say something like, "Ah, you're pointing. What are you looking at? This toy?" as you hold it up. "You want to play with this one, don't you? Here it is." So as we come to the end of this podcast, what I would like you to do is now spend a couple of minutes or so with your baby, interacting with them and trying to put words on what it is that they're doing. That is, can you see of their external world and their behaviour? How are they choosing to communicate with you? And try to put words on their related internal world. That is, what are their possible thoughts, feelings, wants, wishes, needs, and intentions? And notice how your baby lets you know whether you kind of match them in that dance or whether they need a pause or a break. And also just notice with curiosity what it's like for yourself when your baby lets you know that they might need a pause or a break.